has a chance to speak before requesting to speak again. There's no limit on the amount of times that you can speak, and I will open it up.
Why is it any different for Betty than
And
it
again,
is?
this isn't about asking questions because we can't do a back and
I'm
forth,
not-
but if
I'm
you have a
making a
comment.
making a
you
comment.
can comment.
I'm making a comment. I don't see it any different as Betty reading the letter that she got than and sharing the information with you is vice versa. Did Paul or Hank or Chris call Betty and say, this is what I'm going to present at the meeting? No. Thank you.
Right.
Sean.
I just want to say, looking at these hydrant issues, which I'm thankful that you guys are going to look at the issue, but just bear in mind that where you want to put the hydrants on the Kanjaharry's line, they're also county roads. Both them roads are 25 feet from the center line. So even though that Charlie got fields and pasture on both sides, the county has the right to maintain that use or public facilities in that right of way for public safety. So that hydrant can be set back right on the 25-foot mark, both sides. And as an ex-fireman for Town of Ephrata, trucks do not turn around. It's unsafe for trucks to turn around at a hydrant. They make a loop, and that's a constant loop running. That's why they can draft off both sides of the trucks. So they don't turn around, they run a loop. So you wouldn't need a turnaround.
Thank you. Any other comments? Sandy.
Okay, so this stream that we're talking about is going to maintain 1.5 million gallons of water year-round. What's the liability of putting a pond up there? Here's the other thing. The gentleman across the street, Tennis, his last name, he's offered the use of his pond if we want to use it for a fire pond. Somebody needs to go talk to him. And how far down will we have to go to keep it from freezing? This pond situation is just not going to work. The fire hydrants are the way to go. And we have lots of water. When we've talked to the mayor of Kanjaharry, he gave us permission to use those lines. We could even run lines down Dillon Beck Road and Hickory Hill Road if we wanted to. That's where we need to be going, not looking at ponds. And if we're going to look at ponds, let's give it to people who already have their ponds close to the road. That would make more sense. Put the hydrants there. They get a tax break, the farmers do, if you use them for fire hydrants. Nick Herding has one. The Kennedys have one next to the road. Logan's has a 15-acre pond. I mean, those are the things that you want to look at if you want to use a pond. That would be my answer to these questions. We need to really look at it. And when did we start this fire committee? I mean, where did we get this fire committee? I don't remember anybody ever talking about a fire committee. I mean, show it to me in a minute somewhere where there's a resolution or a committee was picked to be a fire committee. Y'all do what you want to do up there. You speak, do whatever you want to, and you sneak behind Betty and do what you want to do too. Enough is enough going after her.
Any other public comments?
I just want to add one thing. I did talk to
Let me,
Dave.
hold on, just let me,
Okay.
yeah. Any other comments?
Oh, I have another comment if nobody else does. Okay.
Hold on. Would anybody else like to speak from the public before Sandy speaks again? Okay.
And furthermore, I mean, where are we going with everything in this town? I mean, it's so helter-skelter. We're still talking about this building. It's been in the town for 15 years. That's all we've done is talk about this building. And now there's a possibility there's going to be a municipal building. So now we're spending money on this building. It doesn't make any sense. I think we need to wait until things all work out to find out what we should be doing. What about that money from the audit? You all know what's going on with that money. Is that why he wants to put a pond up there so that we can't use that site to build a building? That's ridiculous. And that's what I think is going on here. And what has happened? Chris Novak goes ahead and puts a resolution forward about an audit results, gets in the front page of the paper, thanks to Mr. Thomas, because that's what he does is report the news, when you were told by the audit people that the results of that audit were not supposed to be let out to the public. I think you're in some trouble over that. It's called helter skelter. You, Sarah, have no control over this board. When Neil was supposed to be in charge at the last meeting, Chris ran the meeting, not Neil. And you're doing whatever you want to do, and nobody's held responsible for anything. Although I do think the Napoli's office is looking at Chris Novak for putting that in the paper above what they told you guys not to let that information out. You have no control. And you might want to stay here once in a while to run the town because you're never here.
Are you finished?
I most certainly am, for right now.
Any other public comments? Okay.
I just have one question, and
So I think you're new to the meeting. Will you state your name and?
Laura Lee Whitlock. I just wondered how this pond might affect neighboring wells too. That would be a concern of mine, that any of the wells up in that area, if you go digging up, you might change the way the water flows and things, to some of the wells, that's all.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I just got some stuff on that.
You can talk after we close public comment.
What is, you want to speak?
It's got to do with the pond, that's all.
As highway superintendent, or as a member of the board?
Well, I am highway superintendent, I can't ever stop being that.
Yeah, we'll close it and then you can talk
Okay.
as long as you want. The 5 minutes won't apply.
Okay.
And you can ask questions and go back and forth. Okay, so the motion to close public comment.
So moved.
I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any discussion? Okay, go ahead, Artie.
All right. I did talk to Jake Tennis. Jake Tennis is all in favor of putting a dry hydrant in a pond which he just constructed right across the road. Jake Tennis's pond is fed by surface water and 3 big tile lines that comes out of my uncle's field. Okay, that pond's gonna have water in it. Okay, Jake said he would install it. All he's gotta do is be supplied the materials and the specs and how the fire department wants it done, and he will put it in. Wouldn't cost town nothing other than getting specs and the cost of materials.
And it's an existing pond?
Yeah, just built it, brand new.
And what's the cost does he?
All it would cost the town is time to get them the specs and whatever the materials cost. I don't know,
No, like rental fee or?
not,
He just
I
would
mean,
let
he's
us know
definitely easy to talk to, very approachable, a lot cheaper than building pond.
Right.
The only problem we'd have, and I agree if it would happen, but we have to get that 6-inch pipe from the pond to the road. Because we can't like drive up his lawn in the middle of summer.
Okay, so if you put an 8-inch line to the road, the water's gonna be right there. It'll suck. Chuck will suck. Paul
If we
talks-
have a clear span through without ledge, because for instance, I would have donated.
Can I just interrupt?
Sure.
this? Sounds like something really good that we should pursue.
Yeah,
And there's a lot more work to do here.
Sure.
I would recommend certainly talking, that, to clarify, there is no formal fire safety committee. There's just some people who have been talking about this issue. It was as a.
Correct. It was a working group, not a committee.
It wasn't even working. There's absolutely no formality to it. There was, as a consideration to the people who have done a lot of work on behalf of this town, there was time made and the agenda for Paul to speak, but there is no formal committee. And I have not seen a request or a proposal for there to be a formal committee. If somebody would like to do that, that's fine. At any rate, this is very early in the process. There are people doing research, and I really thank you for your work. And clearly, somebody talking to Jake Tennis is an obvious next step. And I wouldn't just, I think right now it doesn't make sense to go, to argue about whether yes or no in this forum, because it's just so early, and we
Absolutely.
don't know what Jake would say anyway.
I just want to finish what I was going to say. Paul talked about pressure at a hydrant. Pressure of the hydrant is null and void because the truck sucks. As long as there's adequate water there that the truck can suck, hydrant ain't gonna have any pressure. A dry hydrant has zero pressure. A pond has zero pressure. Pressure is null and void at a fire hydrant. Because the line is so big, there's enough water there, that truck can't suck it all to pump it into the other truck. Because one truck sets up to suck the water and push it into another truck. That one truck never moves, stays right there. Ain't like every truck comes up and hooks up. One truck sets, the other trucks pull up beside it, they pump it full of water and it goes. The problem in the Palatine is not ponds. Anybody that has a pool has a pond, a fire pond in their backyard. And fire departments do suck out of swimming pools, believe me, they do. The problem with fire protection in town of Palatine, and you're never gonna hear this from the fire departments, is response time. We're so far from the fire departments, we don't get, it takes them so long to get to us. In the paper, it was said we could save money by having fire ponds. I don't agree with that. Insurance rates are based upon how far you're from the fire department. So you're not gonna save money on health and homeowner's insurance. The whole thing is response time. There was a fire last week on Con Road. I got a text from a Minden Fire Department volunteer. I was on Route 10. I drove home with one pickup truck with a trailer on it, got in my other pickup truck, drove to the fire, and I sat there for about 9 or 10 minutes before the fire department showed up. Took 15 minutes for the fire department to get there. If you want to save money, you want to save lives and property, it takes a fire department, not a pond. There was talk of a fire department 30 years ago when the house you live in, Chris, burnt to the ground. Land was going to be donated, materials were going to be donated to build the plane, and guess who shot it down? From what I'm being told, it was the fire departments, because they're going to lose all their thousands of dollars of aid, their contracts. Because if you had one little fire truck, you're there in 3 minutes or 5 minutes. That's a big difference, 15 minutes. So, I mean, ponds, there's like Sandy said, there's 15 acres of water on Nellis Road.
Yeah.
That pond's deep. I dug it. I know how deep that pond is.
Marty, what's a fire truck cost, about a mil?
Nope. Minden just bought a brand new one, $204,000. In fact, they got one for sale.
Yeah.
You could probably buy that fire truck for less than you're gonna pay to dig a pond.
We can get a grant, the problem is we can't man it.
You don't have no manpower.
There's no manpower. That's the
Every
problem.
volunteer fire department's
Thank you.
in the same
Right.
situation, I
Yep.
believe.
That's the problem.
Attendance is down on fire departments, big time.
And our average age in this town is 56. So
Well, I agree. It's tough to get people to
Don't get
volunteer to do
volunteers
anything.
for anything.
Right, but I don't think a pond at the town barn is gonna save any structures myself. Chucky Canoble's barn burnt, there's a fire hydrant, quarter of about 500 feet down the road.
Thank you.
They never even hooked on it. There was 4 trucks sitting there full of water, never squirted any water on the barn.
we can bandy this about, but if we save one life because we do something
Oh, yeah, I agree.
constructive,
But
I mean, I donate my pond. I have a pond that's full all the time. The problem is we can't get from the pond to the road because there's a ledge outcropping in between, and they can't dig the pipe low enough to get the dry hydrant to the road. They'd have to go halfway through my field with the truck in the wintertime, which is the snowmobile path, so that wouldn't work.
So, it seems like you are spearheading this effort.
Yeah, I'm
Everyone
working on it.
else, as the council member, I would, just request that any further, proposals you have, I'd love to see, research about other potential sites like Jake Tennis's, as well as a real cost-benefit analysis. I would like to know if the threat, you say, it's amazing to me how many, I've only been doing this for now almost 4 years, but whenever somebody really wants something done, they say, oh, but you can save a life. But we don't really know that, and I would love to see, and you're asked to spend a lot of money to potentially save a life. Well, we could spend a lot of our taxpayers' money and never save any lives and really not be able to justify it. So do a really strong cost-benefit analysis that shows us how a potential pond or hydrant could have changed an outcome of any fires that happened in the last 25 years. And if we can show, look, this fire happened over on Con Road, and if had we had a pond or had we had a hydrant, it would have changed an outcome, not just saving lives or property, but also saving property. If we can't show that, then I think it's pretty obvious that we're not going anywhere. But if we can show that there's a significant outcome change, then
We'll get some
Makes a lot
information
of
from the
sense.
fire chief and so forth. I have a friend on the board of fire commissioners for the state. We can really drill
fantastic.
down, okay?
Great, thank you. Okay, so moving on to council member remarks. It is budget time. The tentative budget was submitted. I will say that me being sick plus Kelly having some personal things going on, I didn't do the work that I would really like to do on the tentative. The next step is to hold a discussion of the board. We can call it a workshop, whatever it is, but basically it's for us as a board to discuss the budget, what we want to see in it, what changes need to be made. A preliminary budget is then submitted and then 5 days later, at least, we hold a public hearing. The final budget is due on November 20th. So I propose that we have our budget workshop meeting on November 2nd. That's a Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Are folks available for that?
I'm sorry.
Thursday at 6 p.m.
6:30.
They have court at 7.
Oh, okay. Then I guess it would have to be November 1st.
November 1st, that's a
Wednesday.
planning board meeting.
What time do you guys have your meeting?
7.
We might need it more than an hour.
What about 5? I mean, get off.
It goes on Mondays.
How about
I don't know if that's-
What's that, has it a 6?
You have to have your public hearing between the 9th and the 15th. You have to have your public hearing.
Yeah, it's too, we need to have the time to discuss and then make amendments.
And are we doing our November meeting there because of Thanksgiving?
So hasn't it already been set?
No.
If we have a meeting, it's like,
Well, yeah, it's gotta be done, the budget has to be done by the 20th. And you have to have your public hearing between the 9th and 15th.
what if we had everything on the 15th, does that work?
No, because you need input.
Okay.
You know, we're really gonna go line by line and discuss what the budget is gonna be. If your input is on the day that we have to pass it.
You want to do the 3rd?
Should we do it next week, Sarah? The 30th, the 31st? Oh, 31st is coming.
All right, so how about November 2nd at 5? Or does that, what time? Wait, what time is it start?
We can't do
7, but
5.
they start coming at 6, quarter after.
You can't, what's the earliest you can do?
I could do 6 or 6:30.
You can't do 5:30?
Madam Supervisor, could we do Wednesday, and if we run late, we can move? Like, because the planning board wouldn't start until 7.
Well, we can't.
Well, okay.
5:30 on the 3rd? 5:30 on the 1st?
All right.
5:30 on the 1st.
So, when do we post for a budget workshop? November 1st. That's Wednesday, 5:30 p.m.
Well, I'd have to type up the thing tonight, and the date's gotta be in 5 days. That's the only
That's
problem.
fine, just make sure it's posted out here and get it out. You can email these things too, so if you just send an email.
5:30 on the 1st.
The audit report has come up. I don't know, I know that their report has been completed. I submit, we're asked to send a very general response. I sent a general response to the comptroller's office, and then the final report gets submitted to the public. I have no idea when. It's completely out of any of our control when this happens. I will just say that I've said it many times before, but I think that the process has been really good for us as a relatively new town board. What we always have to look on is what happened before. And that's not always the right way to go about things, and it's not like others, I don't know about you guys, but I don't really have the time to go to other towns and see how they do things and go to their meetings.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Lots of people in this town have mentioned the sum of like $1.4 million as some sort of, I don't know, some sort of resources that we're supposed to have. I want to know where that comes from.
There are very clear guidelines for fund balance for school districts. There aren't really good, clear guidelines for fund balance for towns. But,
So this is a speculative number, or?
well, I mean, the report hasn't been finalized.
No,
So
So
once
the
the report is
$1.4
out,
million
we can
is a
discuss it.
rumor, basically.
Of our fund balance?
Well, it's made up of a number of issues we can discuss offline.
Oh,
I'll talk to
So-
something.
Did everyone here get the notice on the webinar?
no.
I know Chris and I have already spoken.
Yeah, we're signed up.
We have signed up for the webinar.
What's it on?
It's from the state comptroller's office on how to deal with fund balance.
Fund balance.
Oh,
And
During the day, right?
Yes, I believe so.
can it be saved somehow?
Just connecting to my comments and
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
We
Go
thought
ahead.
you'd done.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. So, I don't know when the final report will be submitted, but my understanding is that the process is the report comes to both the public and the town board at the same time. It's written, it includes our very general response, and then at that point, any of the findings, we are invited to submit a very detailed corrective action plan if there are any negative findings. But, again, there was a preliminary meeting with the comptroller's office prior to the submission of the final report. And what we know, and they've been telling, as this process has been it's not meant to be punitive. It's not meant to punish you for not knowing something. It's meant to make sure that every town does its job well. And so I appreciate all of the feedback that we've gotten, and it's not just like you go through this process and you get a report and they say, okay, you have to do all these things. Over the past, when did they start, Linda? Like, it's been almost 9 months.
Yeah.
Like, over the past 9 months, they've been working with us to make sure that our processes are that we're doing things right. And, it's feedback like, okay, you can't have a town credit card, you can't have a town debit card, you need to have a credit card. You have to do your deposits within such and such time. And it's really these are their rules that you have to follow, and they're rules that you wouldn't necessarily, unless you went through the book, know intuitively. So it's been helpful just to have that iterative process of improvement over the last 9 months, and I'm excited to see the report when it comes out. I think it's going to do nothing but help us do our jobs as best we can. That's it for now. Okay, moving on.